Hello students! In this video here today we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations by factoring. One of the most important things to know when we're trying to solve quadratic equations by factoring is that the equation must be set equal to 0. Now, of course, there's a logical reason why the equation has to be set equal to 0, and it really has to do with what the actual solutions are when we're graphing quadratic equations. But again, since we haven't talked about graphing quadratic equations in this particular video, we'll just look at again how to solve these quadratic equations. And again, these equations must be in the form where they are equal to 0 if you want to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. All right, so after you've got your equation and you know that it's that one side is set equal to 0, then you should, if it's not already in a factored form, then you should factor the expression that is on the other side of the equation. You should factor that expression that's on the opposite side of the equation of the 0. And so it's important for you to notice, or for you to know, that not every expression is factorable. Not every expression can be factored. But again, when you do have an expression that can be factored, and it is a part of a quadratic equation that is set equal to 0, then it's fairly easy to do. So, after you have factored the expression that is on the opposite side of the equation from 0, of course, that is if that expression is factorable, then what you want to do is use the zero product property. What the zero product property pretty much states is that when you have two or more factors that are equal to 0, either one or all of those factors must be equal to 0. So in other words, if you have factors that are set equal to 0, two or more factors set equal to 0, at least one or possibly all of those factors are actually equal to 0. So again, folks, that zero product property pretty much says that either one or all of the factors is equal to 0. So for instance, if we were looking at a form like this, and you may be saying, okay, well, I get what you're saying somewhat, that either this one or that one has to be equal to 0. I mean, how else would you be able to get a product of 0? Because you have to multiply something times 0 in order to get 0. I get that, Mr. Starkey, but how do I use the zero product property? I'm glad you asked. So, in order to use the zero product property, because either one or both of the factors is equal to 0, the way we use the zero product property is we set both or set all of the factors equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0. That's how we use the zero product property. So, after you have used the zero product property by setting each factor equal to 0, what you want to do is, without the variables, solve each separate equation for the values of the variable. So again, you use the zero product property by setting each of those factors equal to 0. And so that's going to give you separate equations. So without the parentheses, you're going to solve each of those equations for the value of whatever the variable is. Okay, and you will more than likely have two different values. It could be that you have two of the same values, but again, more than likely it will be two different values. Of course, if it was two of the same values, that means that whatever these two factors were, that means that technically it was one factor squared. That means that you had the same factor multiplied by itself, which means that again you must have been solving technically the same two equations, okay? Because that's the only way that you would get the same value twice, if technically you were solving the same two equations. So that's just a little general overview of how we can factor, or how we can solve quadratic equations by factoring. We're going to look at a few examples where we work through these problems and we solve them by factoring.